Welcome to our season premiere of Show Not Tell. On today's episode, we'll be talking about everything metaforms. What are they? How do you get them? How do you create them? And much, much more. I'm your host, Fatima Kaba, the Director of Training and Development here at Cinchy. On today's episode, I have with me joining Mitesh Kapadia, who's our Senior Solution Architect here at Cinchy. I'm going to pass it over to Mitesh to introduce himself, and then we'll get right into the content for today's session. Mitesh, over to you.
Thanks, Fatima. Thanks for having me today. My name is Mitesh Kapadia. I've been with Cinchy for about 9 months now. I'm a solution architect with the company and very excited to be here for our first show not tell and talk about metaforms.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Mitesh, for being with us today. So what are we going to be covering today? So we're going to be going over what are metaforms and where can you get them? What do they do? What is included in the experience when you actually have the experience installed in your Cinchy environment? How do you create these forms? How do you leverage these forms? Any questions about our metaforms? If you do have questions throughout the session, please feel free to ask them in the question tab. And if you want to hold on to them till the end, you can do that as well. So Mitesh, I'm going to pass it over to you. Why don't we start with you telling me a little bit more about what forms are, how we can find them, if someone wants to get them in their own environment, how do we go about even starting this process?
Sure, yeah, happy. Let me just share my screen and I can kind of explain what metaforms are and why we created them in the first place.
Perfect, thank you.
So as most of you guys know, let me just figure out how to share my screen here. There we are. All right, you guys should be seeing this. So as most of you know, when you use Cinchy's native functionality, everything you see is very much in a tabular view. So if I were to look at contact information, you'll see a table with rows and columns. And this is how you would navigate all the data that you're reading, updating, and managing from a dataware perspective. Now, not everybody wants to deal with data in a tabular view. So what we did was we actually created a meta experience on top of the dataware platform to allow people to create applications application-like experiences that look like forms. So we created something like this, where now I can look at the same kind of data, but in more like an application form-like view. So here I've got sections on the left-hand side where I can look at, company summaries, intel, team information, documents, engagements, projects, health checks, and more. So what we've essentially enabled is people to use configuration to create net new experiences to access their data in a different way outside of just table view. And we've made it really simple, so even a business user can go ahead and just create a form for themselves. And we actually did this for ourselves, so we can create a customer 360 like what I'm showing you on the screen today. And because we created the customer 360, we realized you can actually create an anything 360 because essentially we're just creating a view of the data that's on the existing fabric. And we realized this is something we could open source and just share with the general population. So what we actually did was created a project on GitHub. If you go to our GitHub page for Cinchy, there's a metaforms project. And in this project, we actually have all of the source code. So anyone can actually go here, check out the code, they can contribute. And what we'll be doing is packaging releases of this code as well as a data experience, which essentially installs the meta objects that you need within Cinchy to actually use the forms experience. What this is it's Angular code. So this is an Angular front end package here, which uses a few tables in Cinchy to actually run. What it does is if I search for forms here, we have 3 core tables. So we have a form table, a form section table, form fields table. And we also have a couple of queries and experiences that get installed with that package. And once that's installed, you're essentially just using configuration in these 3 tables to build forms from scratch.
Okay, that's pretty awesome. So Mitesh, if I wanted to create or start to create a form around my contacts or customers that I have, where do I start? Where should I even start thinking about what I should be doing and how I should be going about doing it based on the fact that it's all configuration versus having to go in and code anything net new?
Good question. So here, let's take a look at these contacts, for instance. So if I wanted to create a form around this, let's say, I've got contact names, email addresses, et cetera, et cetera. Depending on what I want to see on this form, I would begin configuring this in those forms tables. So I can actually show you one example. So let's actually build one for contacts, and I'll grab a couple of these fields. So the way I would do that.
Before you start building it, like I see here in your contacts table that you see everything. My view of the contacts table is really different. So can I show you what my table looks like, and maybe you can tell me how it would be different for me versus different from you from an interactive perspective?
Absolutely.
So here in my contacts table, I can only see here like the records that I have access to where I'm the relationship manager or I've been identified as the relationship manager. I can see that those are the only records they have that I have the ability to edit at this point. So do I have to do anything special or should I hold off on this question and maybe you'll answer it a little later on for me?
No, I think it's the right time to ask that question. So part of the meta form experience, the key word there is meta. And that's because all of the metadata and the configuration around the meta model, it persists through the formed experience. So if you have access to certain fields, when someone's actually building out the contacts model here, you only get access to those fields through the formed experience. If you only have access to edit certain information, again, that'll persist. So you'll only be able to access what you're allowed to do in the metadata in the formed experience. So there's no additional configuration. Once someone builds the model, there's no extra logic or anything when someone's building out the form. It just stays. So that simplifies the ability to actually create forms and not having to worry about all those controls. And that's correct.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So can you show me how to go ahead and start to build something?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll create a simple one right now, and then we can actually flip back to your experience maybe, and you could see how the entitlements persist. I think that would be
sure. Awesome.
Yeah. So let me take it back. You've already given it to me. Wonderful. So let's, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start by creating a blank form. So there's these three tables that we're going to use to configure the form. One is called forms, one is called form section, and one's called form fields. What I'll do here and say, you know what, I just want to create a brand new form for contacts. I'm going to give it just a form ID. I'll give it a name. And then it's going to be bound to some kind of table. So the table we're going to do it on is this contacts table in the customer domain.
Okay.
So let me just type in customer.contacts. There we go. I'll give it a name. Call it contacts. And the display name, we'll call that one contacts as well. And then I want to choose a label that's going to show up at the top of the forms. So I'm going to grab a field from the contacts table that I want to show when we navigate between all the contacts in the forms. So that label is essentially what am I seeing here, so people know what record is we are looking at from that form view.
Okay, cool.
So now what I've done essentially is I've created the basics of that form. I've given it a name, and that's how we start. Now the next section is piece is what are the sections that I want in that form. So for simplicity's sake, I'll keep it pretty simple. Let's just start with a single section. So I'll say in the contacts form, I'd like to have a profile section. And in this section, let's have one column and a row.
Okay.
And now what I do is I map fields to that section. So in the form fields table, excuse me, what I'll do is I'll say, hey, in the contacts profile form, and I'm seeing some of my old data there. I'd like to add a column called let's add the contact's name. So it's a customer.contacts name.
Okay.
let's add another one. Let's say I want to, in the same form, I'd like to add customer.contacts.email. And let's just do one more where I'm putting the phone number I believe we have, right? Customer.contact phone. And let me just confirm name, email, phone number. Cool. So now that I've done that, I'm pretty much done. So I've created a form with one section, and that section I've got 3 fields. And the way I would open up this form is that I actually just click on this open button here, and let's see if that worked. And there you go. So I've got 2 profile sections here. I wonder what's happening there. Let me have a look at that. But what you can see is now I've taken the contacts from this contacts table, and now I'm looking at them in a form-like view.
Okay, cool. So if I want to add more sections, I just go in and add them into the form sections table, and then define what those sections are.
Yeah, and they're actually here for some reason. I'm curious to know why I have more sections. Let me just quickly have a look. Let's go into the form sections. Because I was doing some before that were deleted. Let me just delete this data.
Okay.
I feel like I was playing around with this, and it's kind of looking funny. But now let me refresh this, and should be clear. Perfect. Cool.
Okay. Awesome.
So now if I wanted to add another section, let's move phone number to a different section called contact or something, or email and phone to that. So what I can do in the form sections piece is see on the contacts form, let's have one called contact info. Let's put 1 column per row. In the form fields, I'm actually just going to move these email and phone number now to the contact info section.
Okay.
So when I go ahead and do this and I refresh, you'll see now that I've got 2 sections. I've got the profile, and then I've got contact information.
So Mitesh, I have a question. You see how you have in your contacts info, you've got email and phone number. It's taking up a fair bit of real estate. Is there any way I can have multiple fields on one line?
Yeah, for sure. Good question. So in the form sections table, by default, I was putting 1 column in each row, but let's say it changes to 2. I get to specify exactly how I want the look and feel to be. So now that I've changed it to 2, you'll see that email and phone number will actually be beside each other.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. Okay, so I have another question while you're here. So when we came in, profile was already expanded, but contact info was collapsed. Is there a way where I can control what is expanded or collapsed when the form is opened?
Yes, you can. So in the form sections is another checkbox for auto expand. Okay. So if I just put the checkbox for auto expand, now when I reload this, it'll automatically be expanded from the beginning. And I can click on a record and it'll be there.
Oh, cool. Okay, great. So if I want to go in and add in another section, I just continue to do what we were doing before, which is going back into sections, identifying what the section is, and then putting the fields that I want to appear in there, correct?
That's exactly it. So you just keep on adding sections to your form, and then you add fields to your section, and the application experience, the meta experience continues to just build on that. So you're not ever building any UI, you're not ever coding.
Okay.
Excuse me. As the model expands and grows, you can continue to update the form.
So, okay, that's awesome. So I have another question. Right now we're pulling information just from the contacts table, but in the contacts table, if I can just share my screen really quickly, in the contacts table, I have lots of links in here. So I've got links to the company table, like to company information, to relationship managers, which are other tables within my fabric. What if I want to pull in information from, let's say, the company table, like the table where this company information exists, like company data or company number or the company's address? Am I able to bring that into this form as well, because this is a linked column? And if so, how do I do that?
Yeah, for sure. So any of the data that's linked and connected on the fabric, you can bring in, and that's the whole power of that linked data. that's connected. So the way I would do that is looking at the contacts table. You're right, we have a link to the company. So what I would do is in the, I'll actually create another section here called company. And let's give this one, I don't know, 2 rows as well, 2 columns in a row, and expand that. And what I'll do is in the contacts.company section, I can now map it to that field. So
Okay.
I'll add customer.contacts.company. And once I bring that in, and we reload this, we should see another section for company. And there it is. You'll see that company actually came to the top here. So what I skipped was in the sections table, form sections, you can actually define the sequence you want the sections to appear in. So if I want profile first, contact info second, and company third, I can just put that in the sequence. And when I reload, you'll see that it'll auto update.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
And if I wanted to actually drag in extra information from the company, what I can do is, let me click on a company here and to actually see what fields they have. So there's company, let's say I want to bring in the company address, so street address. What I would do is in the form fields, in the company section, I want to bring in a field from this link field, right? So from customer.contacts.company, and I'd like to actually bring in the street address. So here I would put in the name of the field in the display column.
Okay.
And I would actually override the caption as well with what that is. So I'm saying this is the address, and I'd like to pull the street address field from the company linked column. So when I reload this, let me just click on a company here. No, and I actually wrote the wrong alias here. So see, now it's bringing in the company and it's bringing in the address, but it still says company here. That's because I actually I updated the wrong thing. I did caption override. I should have done name override.
Okay,
So
got it.
Name override. Now it'll update. See, now it says it's an address here.
Okay. So while you're there, sorry, I have loads of questions today. The little question marks that are, I guess those are tooltips that are just adjacent to the labels that we see there. Am I able to change those?
Yeah, for sure. So again, this is driven off of the metadata as well. So whoever owns this contacts table, whoever is defining the meta model for exactly what all these different columns are, what they're named. For each different column, there's also a description section.
Okay.
So we automatically pull this description into the application experience. What you're seeing here, what you're seeing here in that tooltip is actually coming from what was defined in the model. So let's just change this. This contact full name. Let me change the name saying contact's full name, demo for show not tell or something.
Okay.
Once I save this, again, it'll automatically update the application experience. So as you can see, we're not ever changing the experience. You're just updating your model. And as the metadata updates, let me just refresh this. You see how it says contact's full name, demo for show not tell?
Yeah.
It automatically takes care of itself.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. So again, sorry, I have another question. So I see in the top right-hand corner of the form that there is a save button. Does that mean I can also enter a net new record into the contacts table using the form?
Yes. So the forms are not just meant for reading. So just like in this table view, I can read this data. I can go ahead and update something here. I can do the same thing from this forms view. So I can go ahead and like read this data, but I can go ahead and make a change. So if I change this person's name to, let's just make it Lucella Robert or something instead of Rupert. Let's just go ahead and save that. Now, when I come back to the table and refresh this, I need to find this person. I arbitrarily picked them. Where is Gusella? There you go. So the change request is pending.
Okay.
You can see that in the collaboration log. I tried to change the name from Gusella to Gusella Robert.
Okay. So that's editing a record. So I assume that I can add in a net new record through the form as well. There must be an option in there for me to do that too. Then I would think.
Absolutely can. So on the left-hand side here, right below the form section, you can click here. And if I press it, I can create a brand new record.
New record. Okay, awesome. That is so cool. Okay, so again, I'm full of loads of questions today. You're in the process of building this. How do I access this experience now? Is this going to be something that's available through the table, the contacts table, where I can click on a link to get to the form? Or is this going to be, an object tile that I can search for in my marketplace and bookmark? What are my options for actually accessing this experience that you're building for me?
Yeah, good question. So this form that I built, it's being essentially deployed to this URL. Okay. What I would need to do is give you access to this. So an easy way to do that is create an applet for this. So how I would create an applet is if I come back to the home page, if I go to the applets table, what I can do here is actually just create a brand new applet. So let's put this in the sandbox for now. Let's call this show not tell contacts. Let's give it an icon. This one will suffice. Let's make it green, gold. And then I'll put in the URL here. So I want this to actually open up in a new redirected window. And here's where I can put in the URL. Okay. So I've essentially created an applet, which means that it's going to create a new tile for you in the experience section, but you won't be able to see it yet because I haven't actually assigned this to anybody. So what I've done is I've essentially created an applet that actually share this with is your user in the sales group?
It is, yes. My user is in the sales group, yes.
So I'll give access to the sales group. And now that's it. Now everyone in the sales group should have access to it. So if you want to switch back and to your screen.
Sure.
There you go.
Oh, I think it's here. Okay, awesome. It's here. I'm just going to bookmark it so I don't lose it. I'm going to open it.
Yeah, go for it. Check it out.
Okay, awesome. So I can go in and I can pick a record. I'm just going to pick a record, the first one on the top of the list, just for ease of use. Okay, so I can see that the entitlements are persistent because I'm not the relationship manager for this specific contact. I can see that it's read-only. I'm going to see if I can bring up a contact that I do have access to or that I am the relationship manager just to see if my security is persistent. So let me find one. Okay, awesome. So I can see for Lauren's record here that I do have access to modifying her information here. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, cool. So if you go back to your table view, it should be the same, right? Where you can only update the information for Lauren and not
correct. Yeah.
Compare the view.
I'm just gonna pop down into my records. Yeah, so here's Lauren's record right here. That's the one that I chose in the form that is editable for me.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So it's pretty awesome, right? You don't have to do any additional work. Everything just persists. Like you don't have to worry about entitlements, controls, or any of that.
Yeah, and it seems fairly straightforward, right? So if I was to summarize, I've got forms, I've got form sections, and if I should have access to these tables, right? So I can look up these tables myself.
For sure, and you can go and create your own forms as well. You can share them with other people.
Oh, here they are.
The whole point is that it's meant for business users to actually create their own capabilities versus always having to rely on IT teams to go and build something for them.
Fabulous.
That's the whole power of this.
So if I have questions on how to download this, or if I'm stuck in kind of getting this into my environment, who should I chat with?
So you can always talk to your account manager or your customer success manager.
Okay.
They will always be able to guide you if you have any other questions. If you go to cinchy.tv, there's tons of material there as well.
Okay.
I'm actually pulling up my screen here. Give me
Sure.
a sec. And we have tons of material on here as well. So you can go to our builder training, user training, etc., and you'll find a bunch of stuff. If you have additional questions, you can always ask us anything from here as well. We are here to support if anyone has any other questions.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mitesh. That was really, really great. I learned a lot. So thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
So I am going to just open it up for some Q&A before we do move into our Q&A session. I wanted to tell you about what's coming up in our next episode for our Show Not Tell and our next learning series as well. So episode 2 of Show Not Tell will be airing on June the 1st, and we'll be looking at meta reports. So if you want to find out what those are, how to use them and everything meta reports, please be sure to join us live on June the 1st from 12 to 12:30. Registration is open, so please do visit cinchy.com and sign up. Also, again, just a reminder, this is going to be recorded. It will be posted on cinchy.com, so you do have the ability to grab this after as well. If you find this content valuable, please do share it along also. Coming up next week on Thursday, May the 27th, we will be having CI joining us, and they will be talking about their new challenges that require new innovation. So please be sure to join us next week with our CI team. It's going to be a great session. If you haven't registered already, I highly recommend that you do take some time to go in and register. Thank you all for joining our season premiere. Have a great day.